As a starting point, we just have a standard Ionic application that's been integrated with Capacitor and set up for iOS. And then we just have this simple template here. It just has a single button that calls a do native stuff method. And that is going to link up to this method here. And what we're going to do is write some native code that we can trigger through this method. So since I've already got Capacitor set up and we have the iOS platform added, all I'm going to do now is just open the iOS project with Ionic cap open iOS. Now that I have Xcode open, I'm going to open up our project on the left here. And we're going to expand that so we can see the actual files for our project. And now we can see the standard files for our native Capacitor application, and our Ionic app itself is contained in this public folder. So what we're going to do is create a Swift file that we are going to be able to trigger from our Ionic application. And inside of that Swift file, we can write whatever kind of native code we want. So in this example, I'm just going to grab the latest photo from the user's photo album, but you could trigger whatever kind of code you want using this same method. So I'm just going to right click on app and create a new file. We're going to create a Swift file, and I'm just going to call this latest photo plugin.swift. So this is where we're going to add the native code that we want to run. So first I'm just going to show you a basic sort of template for a Capacitor plugin that we can use. So you could use this template as the basis for whatever native functionality you want to access. The main thing is here that we're importing Capacitor. We're setting up our latest photo plugin here, but you could rename that just as well as you could rename this class, which is using cat plugin. And then we just have our function here, which passes in cat plugin call, which is what we're going to use to pass data back to our Ionic application. And you can see here we're calling call.resolve to send the hello string back to the Ionic application. You could also use call.reject if there was some failure, or you could just not pass anything back at all. You could just run native code if that's what you need to do. Okay, now let's paste in the code for our specific functionality, which is grabbing the user's latest photo. So the contents of this code isn't too important. If you are interested in what exactly is happening here, I do have a separate blog post which talks a little bit more about this code specifically. I'll link to that in the description. But the main thing is we're just doing something native here. That's the main point of this video. So in this case, we're just authorizing access to get the user's photo, and then we just grab whatever the latest photo is, and then we're passing that back to our Ionic application with this call.resolve call here. And if we weren't authorized to grab a photo, we call call.reject and just pass in a message saying not authorized to access photos. Now this is most of what we need to do, but we do also need to take one more step, and that is registering this plugin with Capacitor. And to do that, what we do is create another file with the same name, except this one is going to be an Objective-C file. So we're going to call this one latest photo plugin.m. And when we create this file, it's going to ask us if we want to create a bridging header. We do want to make sure we do that. This is just something that allows Swift and Objective-C code to work together in iOS applications. So make sure to create that as well. That's just automatic. And then to register our plugin inside of this Objective-C file, we can just use the following code. You can see here, we call cat plugin, and then we just supply our plugin name here. That can be just the same name as your files. And then we just expose the method that we created, this get last photo taken, with cat plugin method here, and that's going to return us a promise. And so at the moment, it doesn't seem to be recognizing that we have a Capacitor in this project here. These errors should go away when we run the application. But before we do that, let's just first make use of this method that we've exposed inside of our Ionic application. So we'll jump back into the code here, and all we need to do now is import from Capacitor. So we'll import plugins from Capacitor. And this is just the same as using just normal Capacitor plugins. And then we can reference whatever plugin name we used. So in our case, it's latest photo plugin. So we use the destructuring syntax here just to get access to that. And then inside of our do native stuff method, we'll be able to say const base 64 image, because that is the format that it's being returned in, equals await. And we're gonna have to make this function async to be able to use await. Then we'll just call latest photo plugin dot get last photo taken. And then we'll just log that base64 string out to the console just so we can see that it's working. Okay, so with that code added, let's run a build. Okay, now that the build is finished, we're just going to run Ionic cap sync, which is going to copy over our web code as well as sync any of the native plugins that need to be synced. Okay, so now that that's done, let's go test and see if this all worked. So let's jump back into Xcode, and I'm just going to run this application on the iOS device I have attached to my computer. Actually, before we do that, we're going to have to set up the signing for this application, and then run the build again. Okay, so that is running on my device now. What I'm going to do is just bring up a debugging window for the web view, just so that we can see the console log statement with our base64 string. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, you can't see this on screen, but I'm just tapping the do native stuff button that we added to the application. And then again, you can't see this, but it pops up the permission window asking for access to photos. So I'm just going to say okay to that. And then once that is done, you can see that we have this image popping up down the bottom. We have a base64 string of whatever the latest photo was in the user's photo album. So there are more modular ways to do this. This is a sort of very ad hoc way to access native functionality. We can create proper capacitor plugins that could be installed into the project and installed in many projects. But if you do just need to quickly access something natively and you just want to throw a file in there to access it, this is a sort of quick and easy way to do that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, do feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.